Good evening. Today is Tuesday, September 3rd. My name is Charles, and this is the time to talk. I've wanted to do a podcast for a while, and part of my hesitation with actually just jumping in, launching into podcasting was, first of all, it's just, obviously it's a consistently growing market, and it's also at the same point very saturated. And it seems just nowadays that everyone and their grandmother, everyone and their best friend, everyone and their uncle, aunt, cousin, and cat and dog has a podcast about a variety of topics. I didn't want to just jump in without the right motivation or a rationale for doing this. And my thing was, at this particular point in time, we are probably facing in November, which is like 2 months away, one of the most consequential, critical elections in the history of this country. And I am often want to discuss politics with people, and it's hard not to get into these discussions nowadays because it seems that all over the place, everyone, this is all that's really happening. And again, there's a reason for that. This is a huge election coming up. And I often talk this with family and friends. I get into debates, I get into arguments, I get into whatever it is, some really good political discourse on things. And it made sense for me to get in front of the camera and have a conversation with an audience and try to build an audience and share my ideas, share my thoughts on it. So what are those thoughts? My main goal here with this channel is to get people talking, to have people have somewhat polite political discourse. Now, maybe it won't always be polite, but what we need to do is respect one another to a point where we can argue and we can disagree and we can have different opinions. We can agree. We just have to be able to continue the conversation. What I see a lot of out there, especially on social media, is the polarization, right? It's like, you're in this camp, I'm in that camp. I'm in my bubble, you're in your bubble. We had this happen with the pandemic. I think that was probably be one of the earlier times where we saw this happening. I think prior to that, everybody was kind of kumbaya. Yeah, we had different agreements, with different opinions on things, but COVID really put things in that, that frame where everybody was like really either pro this or non-pro that. I think you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to even talk about it on YouTube, but that started. Now with an election with someone as polarizing as Trump, and he was previously president before, he was elected in 2016, and Kamala Harris now, and the whole Biden thing that took place, people are just like here or there, and they want to rip your head off if you even think. Here's what's happening. Mention Kamala Harris the wrong way, it automatically means you're a Trump supporter. Mention Trump in a positive way, then you must hate Kamala Harris. I'll go even further because I've had this happen to me and I've seen this. Mention something negative about Kamala Harris, you hate Black women, you hate women, you hate Black women, you hate Black people because you don't support Kamala Harris. This is nonsense. And that's what this channel is here to address. Not just that one thing, but the concept of that. The fact that we can't disagree with one another without putting each other into these categories of just dismissing people outright. So just canceling people based on their difference in opinion politically or socially, whatever it might be. And then the idea that it's not possible to dislike certain features or certain characteristics or certain policy decisions, certain parts of a person's resume without saying that I hate the entire person in general or a gender, right? I don't want that to continue. So I am going to make an effort here starting now on this channel. I'm going to have a podcast that has discussions with folks. I'm going to give you my opinions on things. I'm really more concerned with giving you information. We need information. And that is part of the major problem that's happening right now. It's one of the reasons why people are so quick to cut each other's heads off and throw each other in these camps and cancel one another because it's a total lack of information. And if I could be more to the point and more frank, a lot of these people who are doing the canceling don't know what they're talking about. They have no idea what they're talking about. There's so many things happening, and where they're getting their information from, this is the root of the problem. And we're going to get into that as well. Let's talk about information. Let's talk about what is the source of your information? When you make commentary on political issues via your social media, whether it's the X platform, formerly known as Twitter. Am I going to have to keep saying that? The X platform, formerly known as Twitter. Shout out Elon Musk. That might get me in trouble right there, just saying that. Whatever. The Rumble platform, independent media, right? Are you watching CNN every night? Are you watching Fox News, MSNBC? Who are you a fan of? Anderson Cooper, Aaron Burnett, Rachel Maddow, Joe Scarborough? Who do you watch? Sean Hannity? What is your place? What is your go-to? ABC? Just David Muir at night? I like David Muir on ABC. Is it NBC? Is it Today Show? It's Good Morning America? Michael Strahan? Shout out Michael Strahan. Are you watching that kind of news? Are you reading a paper, the New York Times, Washington Post, Daily Mail? What do you do? You just go online? Or is it your Facebook feed or your Instagram feed or your X feed? Where do you get your information? This is probably my biggest thing. The thing I campaign for the most is having information. And unfortunately, we are living in a world right now where, I'm going to put it out here, probably the first controversial part of this podcast is that legacy media does not hold your interest. Do you understand? They do not have your interest at hand. They have their interest at hand, and their interest is corporate interest. If you don't know that, then I guess we got to back up and we got to start that conversation, or you need to take the time to figure out what that means. The corporations control the media. If you don't know that and you don't understand that is the first thing we need to address. That's the thing you need to fix. You need to at least identify that watching CNN, watching MSNBC, watching Fox News, watching these legacy media, these are corporate owned news channels with figureheads that get paid a hell of a lot of money to sit there and give you the information that the people behind the scenes want you to hear. That's the way that works. So let's just say, let's put legacy media aside. Okay, well, Charles, where do I get my information from? Where do you go? Where do you find other sources of information? That's the trick. You should be looking. You should be saying to yourself, I wonder about that conspiracy theory. I wonder if that's true. I wonder if that's real. I wonder if that really happened. Oh, I wonder, did he say that? Did he not say that? Do a deep dive and try to find other sources. This channel might become one of your sources because I'm going to light shit up and I'm going to tell you things that you might not know from simply scrolling your Facebook feed and your Instagram and your X and whatever. We're going to get into it here. There are independent voices out there. There are independent journalists. There are people who are doing great work like Matt Taibbi, who's probably one of my favorite, one of the most respected journalists. Matt Taibbi, Walter Kern, Russell Brand. You know, for a second I thought, do I even say Russell Brand? Do people get upset? Oh, he's a comedian, he's an actor. He's Russell Brand. If you don't know who that is, or you think somehow he doesn't fit in the category of journalism or doesn't have a voice or something to offer to the particular space of information and objective reasoning, then go watch go to Rumble and look up Russell Brand and watch Russell Brand. Learn something, get a different voice. It's not going to kill you. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If you find Russell Brand to not be worthy of providing you with any information and you think he's a moron, then move on to the next one. Go read something, go to Racket News, subscribe, go ahead and check out Matt Taibbi, Walter Kern. They do a show. I'm plugging shit already in this, but I feel it's necessary. America This Week comes out every Friday. You can check out Matt Taibbi and Walter Kern. Go check out Glenn Greenwald on Rumble. Now, I'm going to get shit about that too. This is a award-winning journalist. This is not some guy, whether he's left or right or center. That's not for me to sit here and convince you that he's right about everything. That's something else you need to understand. I talk about Russell Brand. I talk about Matt Taibbi. I talk about Glenn Greenwald. I could bring up Tucker Carlson. I bet you that's a surprise. Black man sitting in the chair talking politics and blah, blah, blah. And it's mentioning Tucker Carlson as a resource. Why not? Why not? Highly respected journalist. I don't agree with everything Tucker Carlson says. I don't agree with everything Tucker Carlson does. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that he doesn't have a voice in the space. And he is, quite frankly, from what I've derived, what I've concluded during his time as an independent journalist when he got booted from Fox, during his time, he's done a 180. And if that 180 means that he's pro-national sort of free speech and he believes in the Constitution, I'm not going to say, oh, I can't like Tucker Carlson, the white guy who's a former Fox guy who's a right-wing media guy. I'm not going to say that about him. I think he still holds on to some of those things. And like I said, I don't think he's perfect. Russell Brand's not perfect. Matt Taibbi's not perfect. Glenn Greenwald's not perfect. Anderson Cooper's not perfect. None of these people, none of us are perfect. But you've got to allow other voices in. You've got to be able to get other information. You need to be able to decipher between, I got this story, this story, this story. Let me figure out how they match up. I got this information over here. I got this information over here. Let me see what's happening. Joe Rogan. I could bring up Joe Rogan. And that's going to cause controversy. Oh, you bring up Joe Rogan, MMA, blah, blah, blah. You want to demean Joe Rogan and the information doesn't count? It's conversation, people. It's conversation. You don't have to be best friends with Joe Rogan. You don't have to agree with everything Joe Rogan says. You don't have to agree with everything his guests say. I don't agree with everything his guests say. I don't agree with everything Joe Rogan says or does. I watch Joe Rogan. It's interesting. It's people talking. It's where you can get information. It's where you can listen, maybe learn something. I could go down a list with you and tell you. I think it's obvious at this point. I watch a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of interviews. The Young Turks. I discovered them recently. Here, check this out. I discovered Young Turks recently. Why? Because one of the podcasters that I admire and that I watch, listen to a lot is Lex Friedman. Lex Friedman had the founder, I forgot his name, Zhang, the Turkish guy, on his podcast recently. And I was blown away. And I was like, how do I not know these guys? How do I not know their views? And how do I not know what they're about? And I didn't know. And I learned something. That is the message I'm giving you right now in this sort of lengthy thing I'm giving you at the beginning of my show, the first episode. I want you to stay with me. If you find this channel, I'm going to ask you to subscribe and to pass it on to other people and have them subscribe. We're going to grow this to 1 million, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Candace Owens. Going to bring up Candace Owens. I left her out. Alex Jones. Names that create some sense of, oh, ill. How could you? I've had conversations with friends about Candace Jones. I did a post about Candace Jones. I said, I do not hate this black woman. I said, I cannot hate on her. I can't. She got fired. When she was fired from her publication online, I started watching her. I have issues with Candace. Of course I have issues with Candace Owens. I have plenty of issues with Candace Owens and some of the things she says and the way she says certain things. But I still admire her as a journalist. I still admire her as a woman, as a black woman. So you see, we're countering the whole, I hate black women and I hate women because I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris. Which I shouldn't even say I'm not a fan of hers. I'm just not in her camp. I'm not supporting her 100% yet. But Candace Owens is a journalist. I listen to her. Andrew Tate, there's another one. Let's bring up all the people who you're going to find out eventually. And hopefully I'll get these people on my show. Let's put all the people on the line right now of who it is that I can speak about in a way that's positive and not just bashing, or I don't belong to the camp that believes that that person is no good, or that person said this, or that person acts this way. Andrew Tate's a misogynist. I don't feel that way. I think the brother's got a lot, and I'm calling him a brother because he may not play up the blackness, but he's half black. All right. So Tate, you're my brother. Tristan, you're my brother. Period. I don't care. And it's not a black or white thing. But my point is, getting back to the point, I'm not going to put this man under the bus because he says some dumb shit here and there, or because it's been taken out of context, because the powers that be kind of want to keep him in his place, because I see that game and I'm with him on that and I understand that. So I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and I'm imploring my audience to wake up and start doing the same thing. Stop throwing people out because Candace said this during the George Floyd riots and she said this about the situation. Andrew Tate once said this, so I can't. Alex Jones, one point, said that. We got to stop. We need to understand that there's us, there's the independent media, there's independent journalists. And thank God. And let's give shout outs to the platforms that are allowing that to happen. X, Rumble. Right? Let's give shout outs to the platforms allowing this to happen. YouTube to a certain degree. And let's embrace those voices that are at least saying on the other side, right? We've got our one side here, we got our other side. And let's embrace the voices that are saying, hey, look, there might be a different perspective. Hey, here's something you should know. Hey, here's something you should know about that story. Here's something you should know about that candidate. Let's open our minds to listen to things that we may not 100% agree with. That's what this is about. I can go on this, but I want to really nail that point home because this is the first episode and I'm trying to do this once a week to have this come out in the evening times and probably work on doing a live show as well where I can have engagement with people, because talking by myself, talking to a camera is really not what this is about. It's about engaging other voices. It's about having people disagree with me, having people teach me something. Remember something, you get into a discussion with someone and you don't agree with them. It's possible that you come out of that discussion and you actually learn something and you might agree with them on some things. So let's get to the meat of this. Let's get to Kamala Harris. All right? Let's get to Kamala Harris. I know that's what you're here for, right? You're like, oh, what is this guy talking about? Blah, blah, blah. Let's get to the meat of this. Kamala Harris. In the same theme as information, what I discussed, where are you getting information? Legacy media? This is my issue right now with the Democrats and with the Kamala Harris situation. First, this woman ran previously. And when I say this woman, I want to make it clear that one of my goals and one of the things I am personally working on is making sure that I don't sit here and disparage or talk. I don't want to do the thing where I allow myself, and I am capable of it. I'm just admitting it right now. It's one of my flaws. I don't want to talk down or be mean and be disrespectful to people. That's not what I want to do here. I don't want to do that. But I do want to talk truthfully. The situation with Kamala Harris, she ran previously. She didn't make it very far. She dropped out. She just didn't do well. She wasn't very popular. She didn't have any sort of support. We're not talking about her career as a prosecutor. We'll get into that another time. I'm not talking about her success as a person, as a woman, and what she's done with herself. We're talking about in the political process in the race towards the presidency. Then she was handpicked as Biden's VP, and she's been the vice president. Now, as vice president, she has been the most unsuccessful vice president in 40 years. Now, I know people are going to say, and I've heard this before, someone in my circle said this to me, well, what vice president is popular or what, I said, well, Cheney, not for the right reasons, but he was super popular and he practically ran the Bush administration. Who else is popular? I mean, Biden was popular next to Obama, and that's hard to do, right? But Joe Biden, he'd been in Washington. He's been in Washington for 52 years. And he was pretty popular. There's been other popular vice presidents. My point is, she hasn't done anything as vice president for you to actually say, wow, Kamala. No one was even mentioning her name. Probably half of you, I'm being a little cheeky right now, don't even remember what her name was as vice president, unless they put her in your face. And guess what? That's what they did. They have thrust her in your face. And there's a part of me that wants to tell you should be personally offended by that, by the idea that you're telling me I should support and I should clap and go, yay, for this one person that you've just thrown in my face. And guess what? It's working. It's working because a lot of you are out there and a lot of you are supporting. You showed up at the DNC waving flags and there's all sorts of coverage and your Facebook pages are all, I'm with her, I can't wait. And suddenly she's your best friend. Suddenly she's Beyonce. No. Here's why. Here's why I say no. It's not me saying, no, don't support her. Again, I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you or make a case that one person is better than the other. I mean, it might come up a little bit in certain opinions. You might sort of decipher what I'm saying or maybe, come to your own conclusions based on what I'm saying, but I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other. I'm more concerned with giving you the facts. Biden was basically kicked out of office. Let's just get that out. Remember those independent journalists I was telling you about previously? Well, they all knew that he was losing his mind. They knew he was incapacitated mentally, and this guy was suffering from dementia. That was obvious to all of us who paid attention. Now, you're not going to get that on legacy media. They waited until the very last minute where there was nothing they could do because it was live on TV in front of the world during that debate with Trump, the first debate. It was sort of cats out of the bag. When that happened, I immediately went to CNN because I wanted to see if CNN was going to finally admit or what they were going to say. And I think the first person to talk was John King. And he literally, like hands in head, was like, yeah, it's over and blah, blah, blah. And it was terrible. And Democrats are currently scrambling to figure out who they're going to replace him with. And right along the table, including Van Jones, including all of them just went in. David Axelrod, they all pretty much agreed it was over. And all that was an admission because they had no choice. They couldn't deny it any longer. But up until that point, they had been denying it. Now, all of a sudden, they decide to basically form a coup, execute a coup on this guy. He didn't want to go. Biden didn't want to go. His legacy would have been the 2 terms. No one in Washington, D.C. does 1 term and thinks they're the man. Like, it just doesn't happen that way. You do 2 terms, otherwise you're not a superhero. You're not going down in history as a president that was really worthy and strong. You want your 2 terms. I'll be damned if Biden was going to go. He got pushed out by the powers that be behind the scene, including Obama that was involved in that. David Axelrod, part of the whole apparatus behind the scenes. that pushed Biden to go. And then it was that letter, and that letter was bullshit. And then all of a sudden, he didn't even mention Kamala at first. And then all of a sudden he had to come back and mention her. That was kind of odd. Obama, Pelosi, they didn't endorse her right away. That took a little bit. And then they just decided, well, no primary, no nothing. We're just going to throw this woman. We're going to appoint her as the queen, and you're going to all bow down, and that's it. Yet, I want to point something out. These are the people, when you guys are waving flags and you guys are making speeches and saying things about democracy on your Facebook pages. Yeah, bring democracy back. We got to stop Trump because we got to save democracy. You need to understand that the Democrats, the current administration, is responsible for basically subverting democracy for the last 4 years. I mean, it's been ridiculous, and they continue to do it in their own interest. So you can support Kamala Harris. You can support the Democrats if you want. Just don't say that you're doing it to basically save democracy, because you'd be wrong about that. If you say the words, or you actually learn, like, hey, you know what? I've learned that the Democrats actually have done some shady things, and they are subverting democracy at every turn they get. They've been doing this for a while. Let's not even get into censorship and what's going on with that. We will get into that on a later episode, and the Biden administration is responsible for a lot of that. If you can say those words and you know it, and then you say, you know what, I'm still going to support them, then fine. Just remember what I say. Have the right information to come to your conclusions. They throw someone in front of you and get Megan Thee Stallion. Shout out to Megan Thee Stallion. Good Lord. To get up on a stage and start dancing and doing all sorts of stuff. And you guys are anointing this woman as if she's the greatest politician that ever lived, and that you're familiar with all of her policies. That is what this is about. Do you know a single thing about what she stands for in terms of policy? Has she outlined any of them? Has she discussed any of them? Has she done any real interviews? She did one real interview. It wasn't even a real interview. She did it last week. And she came on with her vice president selection, Tim Walz. How long was that interview? What was it? 8 minutes? I don't know what the actual time, the length of the actual questions were. It wasn't live. It was recorded. She was, she had the questions ahead of time. I don't think she did too great. And nothing was really strategized. Like, nothing was really laid out. There were no real answers. And yet, there are many of you just embracing and woo-hoo and hooting and hollering. And yet, I ask you, how much do you love your current situation? How much do you love America? How much do you love your life? Where are you right now? What do you believe in? What do you want? Do you believe we should have multiple wars going on at the same time and continue to fund the military industrial complex? Should we do that? Should we put ourselves at risk? Should we look to have war with Iran? Should we engage with more of these things? Should we be on the precipice of World War III and nuclear war, God forbid? Armageddon? Is that something you care about or you don't care about? Or you're more concerned with the black woman being nominated as the first president? Is that your concern? I tell you what. That I can respect. If you're going to tell me you don't care about nuclear war, or you kind of do, maybe you know a little bit what's going on in the Middle East, you have a feeling about it, you have an opinion, but all that doesn't matter because you're more concerned with the first woman, the first black woman, first Indian woman being elected to the office. I can respect you if you say that. Just don't run around. You have no idea what's going on other than what you're being sold, what you're being told by the powers that be that control the matrix. Do not just say, I'm voting blindly because it doesn't make a difference. Identity politics. I want us all to come together, and I want us to at least make decisions that are based in rational thought, that are based in rational fact. Let us come together and do that. All right. If you enjoyed listening to me on this episode and you made it through, I'm wanting you to subscribe. Let's get this thing going. Let's subscribe, like the video. If you can tolerate me, there's more to come. I don't think it'll always be this fiery, but maybe it will. Who knows? This stuff, it's an emotional time. A lot of things happening, and you might get some fire out of me. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I'll entertain your evenings, right? All right, that's it. I'm Charles. I've said what I had to say. I will see you on the next episode. And again, we'll be doing lives. So I hope to bring people on and have these discussions. And I look forward to it. Until next time. Find information, use information, learn, study, engage. Peace.